Thank you. We're going to start with a quick question. Hands up if you're pleased it's raining today. Yeah, it's not, okay. I'm actually very pleased it's raining today. Just this last week, I've installed a small micro hydro scheme on my small holding, which is near Talgarth. And I earn, every time it's raining, I earn at least £2 an hour. It's not a lot of money, £2 an hour. That's £50 a day when it's raining. Where's that money coming from? You shouldn't be that pleased, actually. You're right not to be pleased, because some of that money that I'm getting is coming from you, because it's getting it through the feed-in tariff, from the supplement on energy bills for renewable energy. It's just a very small example. What I want to just talk to you about is the opportunity that community councils have got for installing community-owned energy generation, renewable energy plants. That's what I want to talk about. And 95% of that feed-in tariff comes from England and Scotland. It's not going to last forever. The more energy systems under community control that we can get built in Wales in the next 5-10 years will mean literally the opportunities for millions of pounds for 20 and 25 years coming into Welsh communities. There's a lot of money at stake here, and that is what I want to talk to you about, and that is why I'm happy that it's raining. In fact, I get a bit depressed. I look forward for a week forward, and if I don't see rain, I get a bit nervous, actually. Don't like it. Right, there's three points I'm going to get across. One is there is an opportunity for community-owned energy generation. The time to act is now. And lastly, there's a lot of support to help you make those first steps. If you haven't already made those first steps, there's an awful lot of support around to help you make it. Support that is independent of the companies that build the systems. You don't have to go to the experts, the providers, the commercial providers with a commercial interest. There's a lot of support that you can get. That's my point. Now, my own experience is I'm one of the founding directors of the Green Valleys. We're based in the Brecon Beacons, and we're a social enterprise, we're not-for-profit, and we help, our mission is to support communities fighting responses to climate change, reducing CO2 emissions. That's very much how we started, but increasingly my passion is about getting some income from energy generation into communities for the future, and that's what I want to talk about. Now, my own experience is very much on hydropower. So I'm going to very quickly run through what micro hydropower is and how it works, and my experiences with micro hydropower, small-scale hydro. That doesn't mean to say that you can't do the same with wind, with anaerobic digestion, with biomass heating systems, with photovoltaics. There's lots of opportunities. I'm only using hydro because for the last 2 years, I've been a director of a part of this company which is in designing and installing micro hydro systems. We're working with a lot of community groups. We're working with about 8-10 different community groups installing and designing and financing these schemes. So there's an opportunity. So what I'm firstly going to have to do is what is micro hydro? Just so that you know what I'm coming from. It isn't building enormous dams across valleys and flooding them, okay? We're talking small scale. What you do need is a hill and some rain. The green line there, that's the catchment area. That doesn't exist. That's just, if the rain falls inside the green line, it's going to end up in that stream. And then we put the water into a pipe at the top of the red line. We run the water down the pipe to the bottom of the red line. We run the pipe water, which is under pressure, through a generator. We create electricity. The water goes back into the stream. Downstream of here, you wouldn't know anything had gone on. What am I talking about? That's an intake. That's where we take the water out of the stream. Not all of the water, some of the water. We have to get a license from the Environment Agency, and they will tell us what proportion we can take and how much we can take it. That's a small metal screen. You can see the stream. There's a small pool behind a small weir. It's a stream you can step over. It's 3 foot wide. It's not big. This particular stream is generating about 15 kilowatts today, definitely 15 kilowatts every hour. That's about 3 times what I'm in. That's about £5 an hour, £6 an hour, 24 hours a day. It's small-scale stuff. That water goes into a pipe which we will bury. Once it's in, you wouldn't know it's there. That's a pipe. That's during construction. On this particular scheme, there's an 80-metre drop between where the water comes in and the turbine house. It's 6 or 8-inch polyethylene pipe which is fused together, buried. You won't know it's there. That's the turbine house at the bottom. There's the turbine. There's Hal looking very happy with his system. the actual turbine, I've got a photograph of the turbine, that's inside the shed. The two streams of water coming out under the bridge, the one on the left is the water that's come out of the turbine, the one on the right is the water which always has to flow in the stream. So we're only using a proportion of the stream. We're not drying up the streams. There's still plenty of water for the stock to use. There's still plenty of water for fish. It's the water on the left is what's come out of the turbine. Inside the turbine house, we have a very simple piece of kit that hasn't really changed in 100 years. We build these schemes all over Wales, and we'll often find we'll come across the old turbine house where the 1930s turbine and generator were placed. This is not new technology. The water comes in, it goes through, the generator is straight on top, we generate the electricity and out to the grid. And that is the business end. That is in the red casing, that is the runner, the turbo runner. Very high pressure water is hitting those cups, it's spinning it very fast, it drops down, back into the stream and away. That's what microhydro is. It's pretty small scale, it doesn't have a great deal of impact, but it has some great potential. I'm going to give you some examples. This is a small scheme. The kind of schemes that that communities could own for hydro can range from about this size, which will cost about 15 kilowatts, which will cost about £80,000 to build, to up to schemes which might be 100 kilowatts or more, which might cost £1 million to build. Don't be put off by these numbers. And one of the things I've got to get across to people is community groups, community councils, they don't have a lot of money and they don't own land. So how on earth can we have, how can we get income from hydro or renewable energy? And you don't have to have, you won't have either of those and you can still get the benefit. It might, for a small scheme, it's costing about £80,000. The first 10,000, that's the tricky bit. That's the bit before you've got permissions. That's the bit where you've got to do the design studies. You've got to do the crayfish surveys. You've got to assess the ecology of the stream. You've got to design the stream. You've got to apply to the Environment Agency, and you may not get a license. So there is 10,000 that's at risk. Once you've got those licenses, the rest is going to go on the materials and the construction cost for the thing. Where's that money going to come from? There are some small grants available, but you have to use them very carefully if you don't get tied up with state aid issues. But there's lots of advice that we can give you on that. It's quite possible, in fact I would recommend that you get some loan finance to pay for part of this scheme. And a lot of councils are going, we're not going to borrow money, you need to set up a separate entity, a separate legal entity, and there are lots of social lenders who will lend money for these schemes. This is very low risk lending. The big risk here, once you've got permission, once you've got a land ownership agreement, the big risk is that it stops raining. And you tell that to the bankers and they go, yeah, all right, you can have the money. It's not a big deal. You're going to have to raise some money. That could be done through a local share issue, that could be done through some community fundraising. In this instance, I've just given an example, the community might need to raise £30,000. And that could be individual investors, it could be all sorts of projects, initiatives to raise that money, but it's not a lot, it's less than half. And there are some small grants available. You've got the scheme, what happens next? For that example, these are based on real figures for a small community hydro scheme which we're building in near Langanada. That scheme could generate, through the feed-in tariff, about £19,000 a year in income. That's the great news. The bad news is, if you've borrowed a loan, some of that's going to be in interest. So for the first, say, 5 years when you're repaying the loan and the interest, you might only be getting £8,000 a year. After 5 years, you've paid off your loan. You've then got £19,000 a year coming in. Actually, it isn't £19,000 a year, it's more than that, because the income from feed-in tariff is index linked. It goes up every year by the retail price index. And it's guaranteed for, in the case of hydro, for 20 years, in some other technologies for 25 years. And don't be put off by what you've heard in the news about the slashing the feed-in tariffs. It happened for photovoltaics, but it's still an economic proposition. They've just reconfirmed wind and hydro tariffs as unchanged and reconfirmed them just starting from October this year. So they're there for good. They will gradually decrease, which is why you need to get going now. If you do the sums on this project, the capital cost will pay back in about 7 years. It'll represent about a 14% return on your capital. The community that was able to raise the £30,000 to get this project up and running will be getting £19,000 a year index linked for another 13 years after you've paid everything back. There's a lot of money in this, and this is the small end. A 15 kilowatt system is the small end of the system. You can multiply this by 2, by 3, by 4 quite easily for some other schemes. There's a lot of money. Some of the wind schemes are really big money. So it's a great opportunity. I've got a simple recipe for a community scheme, and if you've got these things, then let's go for it. You need a hill and you need some rain, so you need a stream. Most of us have got one of those. You need a community group that you can work with. And one of the frustrations, we're working with a lot of community groups, social enterprises, companies limited by guarantee, who are set up. It's not the community council. There's a lot of money coming into to entities, into legal entities, into social enterprises, which are completely separate from the democratic process. And I'm pleased that's happening, but I wish that some of that income was being dispensed through the community council, that there was some control over how that income is spent. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to speak to you today. It's happening. There are a lot of these projects happening. I'm probably dealt with 15, 20 community groups over the last 2 years. In only 2 situations am I actually talking to community councils. And I don't think that's right. That ratio needs to change in the future. You're also going to need a landowner. And we don't look for generous landowners. These schemes will pay the landowner a rent for the use of the stream. And there's an economic rent which makes it worth their while to do that. So the community council, you can borrow the money, you have to raise some money, you lease the use of the stream from a landowner. It doesn't have to be a farmer, can be the Forestry Commission, can be other people. That's how you pay an economic rent. And these figures assume that you're paying that rent. Just to re-emphasize what I was just saying, this is Taliban on Ask Energy. They were early pioneers. They were at a time when you could get 100% grants for these schemes, which you can't get anymore. They've got a hydro scheme that's been running for about 4 years. It makes about £30,000 a year in pure profit. It's a company limited by guarantee. It has directors. Its budget dwarfs the community council. They have their constitution says that they can only use the money on energy saving initiatives within their community of 400 homes. They are struggling to find, there's enormous number of social and development and investment needs in the community, and yet we've ended up with £30,000 a year prescribed and only being spent in very limited ways. And I think it's a real missed opportunity, and that again is what I'm encouraging you to think about. There is an awful lot of opportunities around here. We did a study of hydro potential. It's just south of here near Lampeter. Each one of those blue shapes is a catchment area for a potential hydro. There are literally hundreds of opportunities in Wales. Each of those would be economically viable, and that's in one small area. The other thing I will give a plug for is that the Forestry Commission have taken a fantastically progressive and helpful step, is that they are opening up the Forestry Commission estate for community energy resources. There are hundreds of opportunities, and this is one, I think this is fairly close to here, can't remember, but they've made it easy. They've streamlined the process. They have said it'll be quick processing. We've pre-discussed which streams are okay with the Environment Agency. We won't charge much, we'll just charge minimum economic rent. And as long as a community group is involved, we will do everything we can to speed the development of hydro in that area. There are hundreds of opportunities. If you have Forestry Commission land near you, then there's an enormous opportunity to move quickly on that. And I think they're really to be applauded with what they've done with their estate. The first step, and there are lots of, and again, remember, this is only hydro, and I'll come back about the other technologies in a second. You need to get somebody, and with my Green Valleys hat on, we provide these free assessments. We'll do a map exercise. We will look at a map, we will look at a catchment area, we'll look at the flow, and we can tell you roughly whether there's an economic proposition there. We can work out whether there's something worth investigating, and we do that for free. We don't charge. It's about an hour's work on a desktop, and it allows us to tell you whether you've got potential for hydro. There are other people who can do that for wind or for other technologies, so it can be done. You can start. And this is one that's down in Pontypridd. The bottom at the back, this is a fantastic scheme. The financial benefit from this scheme, I don't know if you can see the numbers, over 20 years, we're talking about between 1.3 and 1.5 million over 20 years coming into the net of the building costs from this scheme. It's not just peanuts. My £2 an hour might not be very much. This is big money. So I'm with the Green Valleys. That's what we can do on microhydro. But there is a new organisation which I would very much want to plug here and I'll get in touch with and can support you across the whole range of technologies, which is called Community Energy Wales. I'm one of the founding directors of Community Energy Wales, and Community Energy Wales exists to help, it does what it says on the tin, help communities in Wales benefit from their own energy generation systems. Now, if energy gets more and more expensive, the benefit of having these systems in the community will only increase in the future. Who knows what, if electricity prices keep going up by 8 and 10% a year, what is the price of electricity? What is the economic value of your electricity generating plant in your community in 20 years' time? It could be way beyond what we've been presenting here. So Community Energy Wales has been set up specifically to do that, to help you. They can put you in touch with experts on any technology. It's wind, anaerobic digestion, photovoltaics, district heating systems, and help to point you towards people who can take those first steps. And it's something very much I hope some of you will do after today. Thanks very much.